Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like to invite Pastor Shannon Scott from Grace Baptist Church to do our invocation.
Thank you. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together tonight, Lord, as a city, a community. And Lord, we thank you for all those that have interest tonight in the business of our city. We're mindful of you watching over the proceedings that take place here tonight. And Lord, we look toward you. We ask you to give wisdom and discernment to each and every one that has business here. We pray that you'd help us to handle these matters in a fair and a just and an honest way, realizing that certainly you have interest in all that takes place in all of our lives. We're mindful of our city tonight. We ask you to keep us safe, to watch over our children, watch over our streets, our schools, be with those that are in hospitals and different places tonight that need your attention. We pray that you'd look there as well tonight, Father. And Lord, be with our police officers and our firemen, fire personnel and EMTs and all of those, Lord, that are traveling about our city tonight and trying to keep people safe and out of danger. Lord, we ask you that you give them favor, help them. Lord, we sure love you. We thank you for so much. Thank you for health. We thank you for wealth. And we just pray tonight that as these proceedings go forward, Lord, that you'd help us. We realize we need you. Thank you for this time. Bless these people that are involved in the business here tonight. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. And while everybody is standing, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. Okay, thank you. Let's see, at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Individuals wishing to address the City Council are requested to complete a speaker card and deliver it to the city clerk staff prior to the item being heard by the City Council. Please observe a 3-minute time limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, please state your name and city of residence for the record. On to our proclamations, recognitions, and presentations. We have a presentation tonight for the Corona Public Service Employee Association Animal Shelter Donation. I'd like to invite the following employees to join me at the podium. Chief Newman, Devin Stewart Perdomo, Daniel Pacheco, Kyle Delaney, Lindsay Walker, Jerry Ferguson, and the CPSEA board members Lydia Duarte, Nicole Ock, Mickey Leyva, and Paul De La Hoya. Did I butcher any of those? Okay. All right. So our great Public Service Employee Association, we wanted to recognize them for their generous donation to the Corona Animal Shelter. So whereas the Corona Public Services Employee Association set the standard for excellence through their service, dedication, and commitment to the community, and whereas Corona Public Services Employee Association generously donated new equipment, chew and scratch toys, and an assortment of treats, as well as covering $7,000 in animal adoption fees for a total donation to the shelter of $10,000. Through this donation, 29 dogs, 27 cats, and 1 rabbit all went to happy homes. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Tony D'Addario, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby gratefully acknowledge the Corona Public Services Employee Association for their support of the Corona Animal Shelter and for their commitment and outstanding leadership to our community. Who's going to talk? Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, on behalf of the police department and our animal services team, I just want to say a sincere thank you to CPSEA. Your contribution really accelerated our ability to adopt the animals, and we love our animals in Corona, and we want them to find good homes as fast as possible. We have many more out there, but we appreciate you and your team kind of kickstarting that for us. And so nearly 60 animals. That was incredible. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor D'Addario and Chief Newman. For those of you who I don't know, my name is Kyle Delaney. I'm the president of the Corona Public Service Employees Association. And for those of you who don't know who we are, we're the group of about 250 city employees spaced out across every department in the city. We do about the broadest range of job functions at the city that you could possibly imagine. For a group our size, and for one as broad as ours, you can kind of get a guess of what that entails. If you are a citizen here and you interface with a employee at the city, there's a very good chance that they're a member of CPSEA. I just have a couple of real brief thanks that I wanted to get out. Foremost among those being the members themselves, whose generosity and support for this effort really is what made it possible. Without them, there'd be no donation to speak of. So I wanted to take the opportunity to publicly thank them on behalf of the board for their support and for everything that they do for the city day in and day out. So I just want to say thank you to them. I especially want to say thanks to those members that work down at the animal shelter who reached out to us and said, that they really felt that this was a way that we can make a positive impact and to give back to a community that has supported us over so many years. So I just wanted to say thank you to them, and thank you to the mayor and Vice Mayor Richens and the council and staff for letting us come down here. And of course, I want to say thank you to supervision at the animal shelter, Devin and Daniel. Without them, we could have never jumped over all the logistical hurdles that were involved with covering the full cost of adoption for 60 pets and one rabbit. Of course, there might be some more rabbits down there too if anybody's interested. But yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for letting us be part of the meeting and just formally make this donation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to take pictures? Selfie. What a good note to start the meeting with. There's going to be some happy animals in Corona. Hopefully those chew toys lasted longer than 4 or 5 minutes. Those dogs love to go through those things. So at this point, I'd like to invite Nancy Jimenez, our Northwest Mosquito and Vector Control District Board member, to the podium to provide a presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor D'Addario, esteemed council members and community. I've got a quick 2022, a little late, update from Northwest. They've been a little bit busy. Just wanted to highlight what they've been doing. See if I could pull this up. Just a second. Do I? Oh, it's doing it. Okay. Okay. So we're approaching spring. That is, pardon me, just a sec. So that's going to be for spring. Okay, just a reminder, tip, toss, take action. Removing standing water from containers around your house. Right now, they're telling us that it's somewhat dormant. Toss, possible scrub and throw away all containers that can hold water for 2 to 3 days, especially now with the rains coming in. And take action, please, when going outdoors and using CDC-approved insect repellents. And please visit, I have to plug them, www.northwestmvcd.org. Or call them 951-340-9792. I'm trying to get to For whatever reason, it's not pulling it up. At any rate, sorry about that. It's not pulling up the numbers of what exactly the agency did, but they did have an incredible amount of more outreach programs, including attending our market nights. There were some school site visits. And so I encourage the community, if they want them at an event, to please reach out to them. They'd be more than willing to attend. And now we're going to have, are you ready, Mr. Mayor? I've got an answer to your question. We're just going to wait a second to pull that up. So, are some people more prone to mosquito bites? So we all wanted to know this burning question. If you think you might be the person most likely to get bitten by a mosquito, you may really be more attractive than others. If this topic is of immediate interest to you, again, you are not alone. It is one of the most common questions asked to entomologists and mosquito control professionals. A Google Scholar search for different humans' mosquito attraction yields 36,000 results. This is a highly studied question. That mosquitoes are likely to bite some people more often than others is a scientific fact. You can complain at your leisure. You have science on your side. Bottom line, smell. Some of the factors are blood type. A study found that mosquitoes landed on people with type O blood nearly twice as often as those with type A. Carbon dioxide, if you're a larger person, you probably release more carbon dioxide as you breathe. Exercise and metabolism, lactic acid, uric acid, ammonia, etc. These are components of sweat. Skin bacteria. USDA scientists point to our feet as a culprit. Beer, yep, just 1 12-ounce beer can increase the feast. Pregnancy, since pregnant women tend to have a warmer body temperature, totally unfair. How do I protect myself? The number one way is to avoid mosquitoes. Eliminate standing water on your property and encourage neighbors to do the same. Avoid times when mosquitoes are active, which is generally in the evening, but different species are active at different times. We're an U.S. Environmental Protection Agency registered repellent, DEET, 20% formula is plenty for about 4 hours of protection. Some other scientifically proven formulas are IR 3535, I don't even know how to say that, and oil of lemon eucalyptus. Note that all of these are applied to exposed skin, not close. And just the reminders, and there's your question. So now you have the answer. I hope that was of service. Thank you all, and hope you all had a nice Valentine's Day. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Jimenez. I don't think I like the answer. I think some of us are going to have some lifestyle changes. So thank you.
Good evening.
Yeah. Okay, at this time, I would like to ask for Captain Sean Hutchinson to come to the podium to provide us a presentation update on the Alcoa Dike Phase 2 construction update. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, City Council, community members, good evening. My name is Sean Hutchison. As you can see, this is update number 3, so some of you may recognize me from past presentations here. I'm representing the Army Corps of Engineers and the Alcoa Dike project. The main reason I'm up here, I'll provide a brief project update, but to focus on the upcoming Rincon Street closure, which may affect some people's traffic pattern, and then provide an update for the opening of Auburndale Street in the near future. Okay, so those not familiar with the project, the purpose of Alcoa Dike is to protect the local businesses and residents within the Prado Basin. As you can see, the Prado Basin here is geographically bound by the 71 and the 91, and then heads up north towards the 7-Up Dam down the upper Santa Ana River. If you can see on the perimeter of the basin area, there are some green areas such as the Prado Dam, auxiliary dikes, or treatment plant dike. Those are completed projects. There are also tan items. As you can see, one of them, Alcoa Dike, the current project I'm talking about, currently under construction, and then future projects, the Prado Spillway, which will be coming up here in a couple of years. Basically, the dikes are in place to protect from a 190-year flood event, which is pretty unlikely, but it could happen. And we've seen a lot of rain this year, so we just know that it is really important to protect our residents and our businesses. Okay, so for this slide, talking about the project, Alcoa Dike was a two-phase project. It was awarded in September of 2021 to a local company, Empire Equipment Service, for a very low bid of $25 million. You can see the segments in the green. Those 3 segments were constructed as part of the phase 1 a couple of years ago. And now for phase 2, what we're doing is we're completing all the tan segments of the dike that connect the green segments all together. In addition to adding a new road, the Butterfield Connector Road, which is in between the dike and the Corona Municipal Airport, as well as the Santa Ana River Trail, which will be part of the canal trail that goes from the mountains in San Bernardino County out to the ocean in Huntington Beach. Where we're at so far with the project is the tan area. Everything south of existing Butterfield Drive, that area is complete. That dike is ready to go. We also have prepped the area just south of Rincon Street and Auburndale Street. If anyone's driven by that area recently, you'll see a massive flood wall on a very well-protected foundation for all the utility lines running underneath, and the floodgate is going to be going across there shortly. And then down on Lincoln Avenue, that area is essentially complete as well. You see up there working with Southern California Edison and the city for utility relocations. That is the largest challenge on this project. We've had a significant relocation, moving above ground power lines to underground for this project. And that's the coordination with that has been the largest challenge so far. Looking based on where we're at now, we look like we have a great way forward with SCE and upcoming completion of their work in March. That will allow our contractor to finish the rest of the way, and we hope to turn over the contract for hydro seed and landscape maintenance in February of next year. So just about a year away. Okay, so here's the Rincon Street closure. As part of the phasing for the plan, we always knew that Rincon Street was going to be closed. The reason for that, it needs to be realigned, and the road is going to go up and over the dike as it connects the 2 green segments. There's going to be an S-curve across Rincon Street. That closure is going to happen next Wednesday, and it's going to last approximately 6 months. All the power lines have to come down, and then again, the road is going to be completely realigned and built over top of the dike. That will prevent the flooding that happens in that area and the frequent closures that happen every time it rains throughout the winter. The Butterfield Connector Road is essentially complete there, just to the west of the dike. We're going to open that road in the future when Rincon Street is complete. That's to make sure we have the optimal design and top quality product, and make sure that warranty period is extended so the city gets the best use out of that road. And that's the main thing here. So as a result, the detour traffic is going to have to, coming from the north, stay along River Road and take Lincoln Avenue, as for the next few weeks, Auburndale Street still remains closed, and that's not a recommended course of travel for those that aren't residents in the neighborhood to the north there. So I'll go to the next slide here, and this has the approved detour route. So access down to Stagecoach Drive will remain uninhibited, so people can still go down Corridon to Stagecoach Drive if they live in that direction, no problem. However, Rincon Street will be closed just beyond Stagecoach Drive until Smith Avenue, and that will last for approximately 6 months. So that will just require everyone to travel down River Road to Lincoln to get back to Smith Avenue if that's the way they're going to go. Butterfield Drive will remain open, and there will be complete uninhibited access to both Corona Municipal Airport and Butterfield Park throughout the duration of the project. Next, we have Auburndale Street. If you remember, about 6 months ago, I was here and we talked about Auburndale Street being closed. It's been closed for 9 months now, and I know everyone's excited to have it open, especially the people that live to the neighborhood to the north there. The contractor is on schedule to complete their work, repave the road, have the floodgate installed, and it's scheduled to open at the end of April. If anything changes, we'll let you know, but right now that's the plan. Should be opening the end of April.
Thank you, Captain. Did you have more that you wanted to go through?
Sure, just briefly, if you can see the flood wall and floodgates coming up. The floodgates scheduled to be installed on March 9th. Will be a pretty exciting day for us in the construction of this project. This is only the second one in all of the Army Corps' arsenal for installing a floodgate like this, so modern marvel. Road realignment, no change. Just wanted to reiterate that the Butterfield Connector Road isn't open yet, but it will open before Butterfield Drive closes, so there will have that uninhibited access to the airport and Butterfield Park. And then that's going to happen once Rincon Road and Butterfield Connector Road are complete. Then Butterfield Drive will close, and that will be a permanent road closure, and that will be the future detour for the city. These are just some construction photos, just showing you some of the foundation and the protected utility lines, as well as the flood wall. That flood wall is now complete. Those photos are about 2 weeks old. And then here you can see on the left-hand side the Santa Ana River Trail. That's a part of the trail. It has a DG bike path, or excuse me, a DG walking path, as well as a paved and striped bike path for residents. Contractors are currently working on the design to connect it to the area down by Green River Golf Course and beyond to the north. Pending your questions.
Yeah, I think there's a couple questions.
Sure.
You want to go first, Councilmember?
Thank you so much for the update. I have a quick question. I think it was slide 8 that you were showing Butterfield. There he goes. Butterfield Drive is going to be permanently closed. And so folks are going to have to go up Smith, left on Rincon. Is there a way to make a left turn onto Butterfield Connector Road?
Yes, there is. So there's actually, it's been designed to include a turn pocket.
Oh, okay.
So there's going to be a turn pocket there. And there's a widened radius at that intersection,
Okay.
wider than that drawing shows. But the design has been modified to accommodate that.
Okay. Thank you.
Captain, I wanted to get some clarification. I have been under the impression this entire time that Rincon was only going to be closed from that connector road to Smith. But now you're saying that Rincon is going to be closed. The entire Rincon from Smith to basically the gate up at Stagecoach Road is going to be closed. Can you give me those dates one more time?
Yes. So that's going to be from February 22nd until approximately September 2023. We're hoping that our contractor can finish early. They're an earthwork contractor, and that's what they're good at. And this will be their first opportunity, really, to not have to contend with outside agencies and get their work done.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question that I had is, can you talk a little bit more about the Santa Ana River Trail? I've seen the start of it over by the dike construction close to the airport. And did I hear you say that you're designing a way currently to connect that somewhere near the Green River Trail?
Yes, it's going to go near Butterfield Park and go behind the wastewater treatment plant alongside the borrow area that we have and where the Army Corps office is there.
Okay.
I think it's actually called the City of Rincon is the name of the historical town, and then through the Prado Dam and Spillway area and connect through across and underneath 71 to Green River.
Okay, and then I know that that's phase 4, but do you have an estimated completion on that portion?
I don't, but I can get one for you.
Okay. Because that would be the next phase of this.
Yes, that's being designed by independent contractor Stantec, and the Army Corps is just assisting them with that work.
Okay. And then, sorry, you had a question? Just one. Yeah, go ahead.
Captain, as you've been excavating and digging, have you found any artifacts from Rincon Prado days?
We have not. We haven't recently been digging in that area. We've been just digging over closer to the project site, but we do have a cultural person on our team that examines everything that area, and it is a part of our protocol if we find something to make sure we notify them and have them quickly come out and examine it and take the appropriate actions.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then I just had two follow-up questions. The first one, do you have any idea of when the painting of the mural on the spillway will start?
I don't know for sure, but it's supposed to be in the coming weeks.
Okay.
Very soon.
And then I would like to take this opportunity to make sure that I invite you back when you have that design and some dates around that bike trail.
Sure.
I know that our community services division will be very intrigued about that, as will a lot of the residents that will be able to take advantage of getting on the trail much closer than going down to Green River. So
Okay.
love to have you come back when you have some more details around that.
Absolutely. And then I just wanted to add, for the Rincon closure, signs will be up on Tuesday in the morning by 7 a.m. for permanent road closure signs for Rincon. There currently are message boards up in that area showing both FCE's current night closure along Rincon and for the future permanent closure. And then we have flyers going out to the local residents and businesses tomorrow morning that were just approved today. I have a copy here if you'd like to see it, just notifying them of the Rincon closure.
That leaves me just an interesting follow-up. Will there be a sign or electronic reader board on River, kind of where the Stater Brothers is? There's a lot of folks that come from Eastvale and they use that route as their connector to the 91 freeway. So, but if they're turning on to Corydon, they're already they're already out of luck.
Yes, so there's supposed to be a permanent sign located at that intersection.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to add, this is Savat, Public Works. We're going to add the flyers to our social media as well and push it out there too.
Okay, thank you. All right, Captain, thank you so much for taking time to come and give us an update on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public for the proclamations, recognitions, or presentations?
Mayor, we did not receive any speaker cards.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
You just brought it up during the discussion there. I just want to make sure we're letting Eastvale and Norco know about this as well. Maybe either a presentation at their council or making sure their residents know, because most of the folks, like you said, do take that road or are coming from Norco or from Eastvale.
We'll make sure to follow up with the two cities.
I would heavily lean on Eastvale, though. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the meeting minutes. The Committee of the Whole meeting on February 1st, 2023, and the Corona Housing Authority City Council meeting of February 1st, 2023. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public for the meeting minutes?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards.
Okay, using your buttons, can I please get a motion in a second?
I'll second.
Who first?
Second.
I have Council Member Steiner as the mover and Vice Mayor Richens as the second.
All right. Please vote. Okay, moving on to, I'm sorry, that passes 5-0. Moving on to consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine matters, status reports, or documents covering previous city council action. The items listed on the consent calendar may be enacted in one motion with the concurrence of the city council. A council member or any person in attendance may request that an item be removed for further consideration. Staff has requested to pull agenda item 10 from the consent calendar. The item will be brought back to a future meeting. Let's see, would any of my colleagues like to pull an item for discussion?
Item number 8, please.
Okay. Jim? Jackie? No? Tom? Okay. I also had 8, 9, and 10 pulled, but I guess 10 will come back to a next meeting. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, I do not have speaker cards for the consent calendar.
Okay, so we are going to vote on items 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, 14, and that's it. So can I get a motion? Oh, can I get a second?
I pushed the second.
Okay, please vote.
That was Steiner. Steiner again.
Quick draw Steiner, all right. Okay, those items pass 5-0. Okay, so we just have items 8 and 9. Councilmember Speak and I both pulled 8. I'll go ahead and let you go first, please.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to highlight this item. It's exactly what we have been asking of staff to do, which is go and find other people's money. So I want to thank Mr. Compu and his staff for really going above and beyond, and I'd love to get a little report on this to talk about kind of what we're going to be doing and where we're going to be doing it.
Yeah, I had also pre-warned Director Compu that I was going to be pulling this and asking for a report on this as well, and we've had some conversations, so I'm excited to hear it. Director Compu.
Sure, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Last year, Governor Newsom announced $300 million for the Clean California Grant Program for local projects that will clean and beautify local streets, focusing on removing trash, create jobs, and engage communities to transform public places. The Public Works Department identified the need to improve the city's alleys as a possible fit for this grant. Staff selected alley locations that met the grant program that would give our application the highest points. The scope included reducing the amount of trash and the debris, rehabilitating and restoring public places, enhancing public health by repurposing alleyways as low-stress pedestrian pathways, and advancing equity for underserved communities. The grant also has a deadline to have construction complete by June 30th, 2024, and thus locations were selected that had minimal utility conflict. The project consists of replacing damaged pavement with water-absorbing permeable pavement and cleaning and beautifying and brightening up several alleyways to be more user-friendly and attract, obviously, more users. Because of this new alley design concept and strict deadline requirement, it can be expected that few consultants may be familiar with this new design concept or have the resources to deliver the project on schedule, which explains the higher cost and few number of proposals. When the project is complete, the city will observe and analyze the new installation for feasibility of maintenance to see if this type of alley design is what the city wants to move forward with. So this concludes my presentations, and I am here to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Nope, it's good.
So-
I just wanted to say thank you.
Yep.
And excited to see this get done.
So there was a piece in there that Director Compu and I were talking about earlier that confused me, and he explained it, and I'm going to butcher it, but you can correct me when I'm wrong. But to better our chances to receive this grant money, we had to select certain alleyways that will end up being pathways. They'll be illuminated. They'll have lots of bells and whistles, but it's not going to be every single alleyway. Is that correct?
Correct.
And moving forward, the other alleyways that were not part of this grant will receive some care and some upkeep, but they won't be the pedestrian pathways and the illuminated that are going to be serving our underserved areas. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I thought that was important because, really, a lot of those alleyways in the underserved community they're thoroughfares. People not only drive on them, but they walk on them and they ride their bikes, and I'm sure kids are playing in them. And so I'm really happy to see that we're focusing on some of those underserved community areas and alleyways that will now be a much brighter spot and much safer spot. So very excited about that. That being said, I had a couple questions. I was concerned because the cost of design and engineering will exceed $1 million upon completion, which was a lot of money in my mind, considering the fact that the grant was about $5 million, coupled with $715,000, I think, of our own money. So I had some concerns about that. Out of curiosity, I wanted to know what the number 2 ranked firm bid. I just kind of wanted to see what the difference between 1 and 2 was in the price.
I don't have that information right at hand, but I can get that for you.
Okay. And then I had some concerns specifically in the maintenance plan for this. So it seemed very aggressive. It was a very aggressive commitment by the city to sweep once a month and power wash once a year. And I thought probably thousands of feet of alleyway that we're committing to upkeep and maintenance. And have we considered what the cost is of that moving forward?
Again, that's why this is going to be our first pilot project, and we will be observing it to analyze to see if it's feasible to move forward with future alleys in this way.
Okay. There was something in there that caught my eye about the options for replacement for solar batteries on some of the lights. They have a life expectancy of 4 to 6 years. I was hoping that the consultant would be able to look at materials and find something that lasts a little bit longer, or even explore hardwiring if that's a possibility. And then in A4 of the maintenance plan, the unforeseen costs due to unforeseen shallow or deteriorating utilities in historic areas. There was a contingency in there to ask for a higher percentage of the engineer's cost estimate. And we get into this a lot where we're guesstimating. It's an educated guess on what the engineer is going to give us as far as a cost of maintenance and a cost of potentially having to deal with unforeseen consequences. And I was wondering what the percentage normally would be, and if we were going to increase it, what would that be to? So what would be the what would be the percentage of money that we're going to add on to it, the percentage increase, just because of unforeseen costs? I'm kind of curious as to what that is, because I wonder if it should be higher.
In terms of design, the standard industry is usually 10 to 15%.
Okay. Do you think that that's high enough for any unforeseen consequences?
It's unforeseen. I really can't say.
Well, I mean, in historical areas that who knows what's going to happen when they start digging, right? And then there was something in there about using the critical path method, and I was wondering what that is.
I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Okay, that was in the maintenance plan as well.
Yeah.
And it had to do when they were discussing removing debris and cleaning up graffiti, that they would use the critical path method in order to do that. And I was wondering what that is. And then in regards to the graffiti removal, will we be using our current contractor, or will this be handled by the contractors doing the actual work? Will it be 2 separate companies?
During the construction, it'll be handled by the contractor doing the work. Afterwards, it will be handled by the city's routine graffiti removal contractor.
Okay. Then the answers to those questions aren't going to prevent me from voting, but they are something that I would like to know. And then the other one that I had pulled was item 9. And I believe that was Ms. Coletta.
Mayor, we do need to make a motion for agenda item 8.
I was going to do them both at once. Okay, then I will.
And Mr. Mayor, before we move on to number 9, I need to recuse myself as I have interest in a property that is adjacent to this property.
Okay, thank you. We may or may not come and get you. Okay, so item number 9, it was the extension for the tentative track map. And in my leisure reading, there's a couple things that I wanted to just clarify. This developer is asking for an extension. And if I did my math right, and I had to use my fingers and toes, this developer has had, through a combination of legislation and city council approval, 12 years of extensions?
Yes, but you also have to remember they also had a stay due to litigation. We were in a sequel lawsuit for a period of about 2 years.
Yeah, so this first came about in 2008, and that was done in 2011. And now here we are in 2023, so 12 years later, through a combination of legislation and city council approval, this tentative track map is asking for another extension. And I'm kind of curious because if they, after the lawsuit, are still asking for an extension in 12 years, are they going to do anything?
So right now, they are currently in the process. They're doing a fault study out there. There is a fault line that runs across the property, and that's going to determine whether or not they may have to lose some lots. And they're currently out there trenching right now, and they've been trenching for about a year. So every time they go out there and trench, they find something new. So it is a process that they're currently undergoing, and it's going on right now. So they're asking for another 2-year discretionary extension to finish up that process.
Okay, so I guess this is where I'm running into some challenges. A fault line has been there for millions of years, I'm assuming, and they still continue to ask for extensions
Yes.
to do something there. And it seems to me that I'm inclined to not grant an extension because they are, my vote, are not planning on ever doing anything but continue to ask for extensions. And so I'm just trying to understand what the intention for this property is, and if they were granted another 2-year extension, what's to stop them from coming back? And now we're 14, 16, 18 years later, still nothing done. So I'm just trying to look for a reason why they should get an extension. And digging for a fault line that has been there for millions of years that presumably they knew 12 years ago that was there doesn't seem like a good enough reason for me. I was hoping for some clarity on that.
So this is discretionary, and you're correct. The state has granted several automatic extensions throughout the last decade. So they are eligible for 2 additional discretionary extensions of time. This would be the second one. So they can come back after 2 years and ask for another 2-year extension. But however, that would use up all of their discretionary extensions that they can get from this body. However, I have no idea what may happen at the state level if additional legislation is passed to continue to extend these track maps due to the housing market or any situation. That can always happen again if there is a Senate bill that's put before them to consider that. But this is discretionary. It's really the process that's been put in place by the Subdivision Map Act as well as other legislation that has been adopted by the governor. So we are just presenting this map forward. I do want to let you know, as you know, it is zoned for residential, so a map can just come back and be processed forward again in the same general location under the same zoning, and we would just be repeating that process.
Okay. Ms. Edwards, do we have any speaker cards on this?
Mayor, yes, we have 1 speaker card for this item.
Come on up.
Hello? I'm going to try not to yank the microphone out this time. This is just another zombie nonsense track that's been laying around. If it was viable, it would have been viable sometime in the last, 15-something years. In years past, when these things have come up for this over and over and over renewal, there's been some kind of concessions on their part that's, been generally beneficial to the city. I don't really see any where there's been any kind of negotiations or anything where this has gotten any better or changed, been revised. It's just time to let it go. It's time to let it just pull the plug on it. And if they want to come back, then they can pay more fees and they go through the process and maybe we'll get a better development, something more viable. Maybe it'll actually get built. It seems like there's got to be a reason why it hasn't got built. And it seems like they're just kind of sitting on it, and time to let it go. But we don't let enough of them go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any more speakers, Ms. Edwards?
Mayor, yes, I have 1 more speaker card.
Hey, Joanne, is the applicant here tonight? That's the applicant here tonight. Got it.
My name is Gordon Yude. I'm with RCFC Investments. We are the owner of the property. And yes, I would like to answer those questions. Have the faults been there for millions of years? Yes, they have. However, in our initial investigation of the faults in 2003, we mapped what we thought were all the faults in the property. We hired a world-renowned fault analyst to walk the trenches and produce all of the faults. And we then designed the project around what we discovered there. However, and time went on, and markets go up and markets go down. As I'm sure you know, this is a premier piece of property within the city of Corona. It was designed as a gated community, specifically designed to take advantage of the fantastic views that exist on this property. Each of the lots would have roughly, literally a view from Santa Ana Canyon to San Jacinto. And so it represents the very top of the market. And we're anticipating that pricing in this would be well above $1 million, if not $2 million. We've had a number of high-end builders under contract, and we currently have a high-end builder under contract who routinely builds products, housing in the $1 million to $2 million range. It was their investigation that they asked for an additional trench, and we found an additional fault. Keep in mind that these are not faults per se, these are suspected faults. But under the California law, any fault that is not absolutely, completely, and entirely determined to be inactive, which means they have to have 100,000 years of sediment on top of that fault, has to be ruled as potentially active. And as a result, we've had to do additional investigation, and we may, and the geotechnical reports are done. The geotechnical reports are being completed by or reviewed by staff and the city's consultant, and pending the outcome of that, we will probably have to make certain map revisions on this project. The builder who wants to build the high-end product I'm sorry, that's language we use in the housing business. High-end houses that are intended to be in this location is standing by, and we're still in escrow pending the resolution of the geotechnical issues.
Thank you for coming out. Appreciate your comments.
Any other questions I can answer?
Do you think you'll be able to get it done in 2 years, or do you think it's going to go into the last extension?
I'm getting kind of old myself, and I would desperately like to get this project done. It is, I mean, if you have ever been on this site, it's a spectacular site, and it warrants the very top of the line building product on this site. So. Yes, if the Fed would stop raising interest rates, I think we would get it done in this cycle. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay. Would any of my colleagues like to make a motion?
And I seconded.
Okay, please vote. Okay, looks like that passes. Somebody want to go get Wes? Sure. Sure.
You're at the door. I was crying. We didn't get in like a dog, and they.
Okay, so moving on to communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment on items within the council's jurisdiction that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on these items. Please observe a 3-minute time limit for comments, and once called upon to speak, please state your name and city residents for the record. Ms. Edwards, do we have any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, yes, I have 11 speaker cards for communication from the public.
Did you say 11?
Yes, 11.
Okay, thank you. Come on down.
Dario and Vice Mayor Richens and City Council and staff. I want to wish you all a belated Valentine's Day. If you remember at the beginning of the year, I brought a little factoid to you that Corona was considered by elite singles. I guess they figure that I'm happy, I'm single. I don't know if I'm happily single, but that Corona was one of the happiest, was number 4 on their list of happiest singles in the country. What I have here, and I don't know how to turn it around, is I also had something pop up again that Corona is also on a list of the most romantic cities in the United States. It is number 8. Cyprus beats us, they're number 4, and I just wanted to get that on record that we have something good to say about the city of Corona. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much.
Maddie, you belong here.
I'm a resident here. A couple little things. One thing of sadness today, Raquel Welch passed away. I don't think there's a red-blooded American boy in my age group who will ever forget that 1 million BC poster. Yeah. So may she rest in peace. Another item, and I'm not sure how necessarily to ask about this, but later on in tonight's entertainment, Mr. Speak is going to be talking about the RCTC meeting of February the 8th, which was just last week. I wasn't there. And I was just had a little bit of a request if you could, at that time, talk about anything that may have been discussed, resolved, answered about the mess that had happened a couple of weeks ago when there was a bad traffic mix-up with the jammed-up parking lot in Costco and so forth. If anything was discussed at that meeting, if you could just let us know what that was. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Can you imagine, born and raised in Corona, a young boy attended Park Ridge Elementary, grew up and he graduated CNUSD. He achieved the high rank Eagle Scout in Corona, and then he qualified and went on to graduate the Air Force Academy in Colorado. He stayed in the military, achieved higher education with countless graduate degrees from all over the country and abroad. His assignments were all over the country with overseas commands, and there's just too many to cite. Well, fast forward to a couple weeks ago, and you can imagine the setting in Washington, D.C. I'd like you to meet Thomas P. Sherman, or Tank, as his colleagues at the Pentagon affectionately name him. And our little boy from Corona was promoted to Brigadier General. He's called the top cop. He's the director of security forces, which includes over 43,000 troops, and they're spread all over the U.S. and the country and the world. As a resident of 40 plus years, I was awestruck to learn that one of our own now serving this country in such a distinguished rank and responsibility. My vision immediately went to, we have to plant a giant sequoia and call it the General Sherman of Corona. But no, that's not good enough. How many from Corona achieve such a high level of accomplishment? How many from Corona reach this level of distinction? So my vision is that there it is. And Mayor, for you, can you see it? By the way, David Brambilla says he can get you that tank.
Okay.
I come forward tonight to plant the seed, maybe set the stage to submit an application of renaming one of Corona parks in his honor. I spoke to Dr. Ann Turner today, and she shared that the park's master plan is underway. Part of it includes examining, consolidating that city process where the city property naming is being looked at, and that she would support that this could be a good test case for that new master plan process. Supporting this proposal is David Brambilla, District 21 Commander, Post 742, who says Tommy is still a member and has been for almost 10 years. Michelle Wentworth, Parks Commission Chair, absolutely supports the idea to re-examine the naming policy to allow this example of an acceptable nomination. Moira Fisher, Blue Star Mom, CA 30, Chapter 110%, believes, like I do, that General Thomas P. Sherman should be honored in this manner. Today I went through the administrative policy that talks about honorary naming, and I have 8 seconds, but I wanted to let you know that there is a part in there that says anyone that achieves such unique state, national, or international public distinction as to warrant recognition. So I believe he qualifies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander. I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Sherman are very proud of their son. Welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. My name is Leah Peterson, and I represent Southern California Gas Company as a Public Affairs Manager. I'm here tonight to provide a SoCal Gas bill update. I know this has been on the top of many of our customers, your residents, mine, who have been receiving their January bills that were higher than historical. Market prices for natural gas have dropped significantly for February, and when compared to prices seen in January. While prices in the western region have decreased from the prices seen in January, they still remain higher than last year. The core procurement rate changes each month and reflects the price SoCal Gas pays for natural gas for residential and business customers. SoCal Gas does not set the price for natural gas. Instead, natural gas prices are determined by national and regional markets. SoCal Gas buys natural gas in those markets on behalf of residential and small business customers, and the cost of buying the gas is billed to those customers with no markup, meaning SoCal Gas does not profit from the movement of gas commodity prices. I do have good news to share. The California Public Utilities Commission, the CPUC, approved the acceleration of the California Climate Credit for SoCal Gas customers in response to the unprecedented natural gas prices impacting the western United States. SoCal Gas residential customers will receive a credit of $50.77 in their February or March bill. We continue to inform and offer several ways to help income-qualified customers through our bill assistance and forgiveness programs, home improvement assistance, and the level pay program. SoCal Gas is also delaying the collection of activities on overdue residential accounts until April 1st and will not disconnect overdue customers before July 1st. We have also delayed non-residential disconnections until at least March 1st. In addition, SoCal Gas recently donated $1 million to the Gas Assistance Fund, a program which helps income-qualified customers pay their natural gas bills. To learn more, please visit our website, socalgas.com, and look for the tab Assistance. To help our customers reduce energy bills, we encourage them to lower their thermostats 3 to 5 degrees, health permitting, wash clothes in cold water, reduce temperatures on their water heater to a setting of 120 degrees, limit the use of non-essential natural gas appliances such as spas, pool heaters, and fireplaces. Please visit socalgas.com, managing higher bills, for more information. And you have my contact information, so if you need any further clarification, please feel free to contact me. Thank
Can I
you
ask
so
you a
much.
question?
Yes, sir.
So this is the second time in a row you've come to a council meeting
Yes.
telling us we're screwed. Is there any way going forward that instead of just saying, hey, this is what we pay for it, is there people working on locking in prices or storage tanks, or like you guys are just based on supply and demand, right? But what mitigation ways are you going to solve this, or are you just going to be here in 2 weeks telling us we're screwed again?
That is, so I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about how we purchase natural gas. We have to bring in natural gas in from out of the state. And so It is a commodity, and that is what we have to pay for it at the time. So I understand your question. So some of the things that impact us are the below normal temperatures that we've had to address in much of the West Coast, including Washington and Oregon. So when there's high gas demand by heating customers in other areas, and it's below normal prices, those reduced gas supplies on the West Coast and the Rocky Mountains, that impacts us as far as purchasing. And the reduced interstate pipeline capacity to the West Coast, that's also an impact. So those are some of the things that has happened that creates that.
But that's I get that. That's
Yeah.
what's causing it, right?
Yes.
But what are you doing to fix it? Are you just buying gas from one person and one person only? Are there other competitors out there? Are there other ways to do it? Do you guys have storage tanks to where you can fill them up and weather a
We do
storm
have
and
storage
balance out?
fields, but even that is limited. And even when we bring in natural gas from out of the state, we're usually bringing it in from Texas and other states. And natural gas through our pipeline system only travels about 25 miles per hour. So that makes it difficult to be able to bring in enough to be able to, when there's competitive sources, creating it more difficult for us to get all the gas line.
But do you guys realize how bad it was? You doubled and sometimes tripled people's bills in the last month.
That is
Do you
correct.
realize the hurt that puts people through? This, coming to a council meeting and just
I
saying
understand
this is what it isn't.
Mom, that's not her fault. Like
She
I mean,
works for the gas company.
I work for the,
She
and
doesn't
I
control the
understand that.
global, the global commodities.
And she's come here to tell us they're actually going to
And
give
there's-
us $50 or earlier than the
My
forces.
bill-
There's some
and there's
good news
ways that
here.
people can get assistance. It's just not
Okay,
their fault.
who at the gas company do I talk to that's responsible and can answer these questions? Because obviously I can't beat you up. Who do I beat up to get better gas prices? Because it's month after month now. And by the way, this might happen next year. This might
Yes.
happen the year after that, where it hasn't happened the 20 years prior.
But welcome to the conversation about energy. Like this is the conversation globally about, where our
So how
energy should come from.
and I'm inserting myself into the conversation, and how do we fix it? Do you want me to go fix it? Who's fixing it? Because you're just telling us, all you do is tell us, good luck paying your bill, and my bill was $750 last month. And apparently I'll get $50 back, which, thank you. But how do I get out of the 700 range?
And I understand that because all of our bills have gone up, including mine. So I completely get the pain part of it. And going around and meeting with the public has also been a challenge because so many people they are really, really hurting. And it's not just with gas bills, it's food bills, it's everything. Everything has gone up. So that being said, there is also, the governor has decided that he wants to find out more information. And so he's going to be doing an investigation, and we support that. So those are things that are being done. As far as someone to go directly to get more information, I will try and find some additional information and send that to you. But at this particular time, this is the information that we have available, that because of the pressures on the market, that's where we have, that's what's impacted the prices.
Oh, this one. So Jackie says I'm being mean to you, and maybe I am.
That's all right. That's
Totally
what
being
I'm
mean.
here for, to be able to answer the questions as best as I possibly can.
So next time you can't come, can you please talk to some people before you come and tell us what's being done to solve this?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I will make it a point of meeting with you directly, sir.
Thank you.
I thank you for coming. It's not easy delivering bad news, and I can certainly sympathize with that. And I think that what everybody would like to know, not just Councilmember Richens, is what are some of the mitigating things that are going on to help prevent this in the future. Gas moving at 25 miles an hour doesn't seem like it's very efficient. And
I'm sorry, I'm laughing just because it's gas. It's not like they can make it go faster.
No,
It's just gas.
It's pressure. It's
I
it's a
get it. I
pressurized
get it.
system.
But
That's how it is.
I guess I just think what everybody would appreciate is what are some of the mitigating factors that will prevent this in the future so that bills come down out of the stratosphere.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for taking your time to be able to give me the opportunity to be able to share at least some answers to a few of the questions that we all
appreciate it.
have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will say that Ms. Pearson's very, very good about following up and very quick. So if she's saying that she's going to do it, she's going to do it.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that because I do try.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'm not having to deliver any bad news like that. I'm just a resident of Corona. My name is Kelly Montalvo, and I live here in the city of Corona. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of my family and friends. We have a strong and continued interest in encouraging the city of Corona to become a bike-friendly city. We believe that streets, especially those near schools, need to become bike-safe. I have been here before speaking on behalf of my son Benjamin, who was killed while riding his bike on Rimpaw Avenue in June of 2020. Our family is grateful that Corona has made changes on Rimpaw and that we have been invited to a City Publics Work, I might get the department wrong, City Publics Work meeting this past Monday, and we were very excited to be able to be a part of that. We're happy to hear that Corona is moving forward to implement plans and studies in order to make these changes. We were grateful that we were included and welcomed to this meeting, and that the city is reaching out to the community in general and to the residents. We look forward to continuing to work together with the city of Corona so we can become bike friendly, and most importantly, so that there are no more cyclists killed on our roads. On a completely different side note, as someone that was trapped in Costco parking lot for 3 hours, I'm looking forward to hearing why that happened and how that isn't going to happen again. And I'm thinking you guys are the people that fix that. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening.
And I hope you have a good holiday yesterday. I'm Lydia, and I represent several parks in Corona. Our main reason to be here, as you all know, is rent stabilization ordinance for mobile home parks. And then we're here to remind you that that we are very grateful for every one of you to keep on going forward with the statization and everything that it needs to be taking place so that, we have a better life in our mobile home parks here in Corona. Today I was contacted by Ms. Lara, and I'm really appreciative of that, and we're gonna try our best to help as much as we can to get the information needed for these RSO. Also, I want to share with you guys that our park is being put at risk. The safety of a lot of residents, including mine, my home site was close to an incident that happened a week ago. And I'm trying to see if there's any way that the city will be able to help us to have a better safe place at Corona La Linda. We have young people on bikes offering beer and drugs to our 10-year-old children, 7-year-old, 11-year-old kids that are running around in the park. It's getting out of control. And I wonder and see if maybe the Corona Police Department would like to come over for one of our resident meetings and help us to have a better community in some way, somehow. But I do want to, share my appreciation to all the time that is being put into the RSO for Corona Mobile Home Parks. And we will continue to come and share our experiences with you guys because this is a community concern. And it's the safety and the health of the residents of Corona. We are part of it, we pay our taxes, and I think that we deserve to be helped on any way that you guys can. You guys know my number. There are several parks here with the same reason of RSO. And if there's anything that I can help with the RSO, I'll be more than happy to. Please be free to share my phone number and my name. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, good evening. Steve Husner, 777 South Temescal Street,
Corona, La Linda, space 123. It's been a while, but we figured we'd come back just to keep fighting for this rent stabilization. And Tony, as you were saying, like everything's going up, I'm like, what a perfect time to mention, can you help us so our rent doesn't go way, way up? I mean, a little bit every year was cool, but this rent stabilization will help. The rich is still going to get richer, but it's going to save people from being homeless, along with the utilities going up, all these extra little fees on our rent that we can't fight because, you know, unfortunately, private property. But what a perfect time for rent stabilization. And I know you're doing research. I appreciate you doing all that research and everything, but we're still praying for rent stabilization. The park has gotten a little worse. I haven't seen security in the park in a long time. There used to be a little security, you know, at night. He would probably just sit out front. He wouldn't drive. He would sit out front and just take off because I go to work at like 3 in the morning. But I haven't seen him in like 3 or 4 months. The office phone number hasn't worked in a long time. There's no office phone number, which isn't a huge deal to me. But where I park my van to go to work, the RV lot, the rent about 6 months ago, you know, to park your trailer or RV, it almost doubled in price. And the light, there's like a big LED light. It's been out for 2 to 3 months, and they tell me every week that they're going to replace it. Hopefully this week it gets replaced. If I go in there and request too much respect, it'll be like an issue. But it's like eventually people's cars are going to get broken into, and I know we really can't get involved with that. But the thing is, they're almost doubling the RV lot cost, and the light's completely out. It's pitch black back there. Boards have been broken down. I go get a hammer and nails and put the boards back up. Fingerprints were all over my van the other night. So I guess if my van gets broken into, I'll pursue that and do what I got to do. But basically, we're just here for rent stabilization. We're praying that you guys, that God will come through on this. And yeah, good to see you guys and women and men. And I just keep praying that God's will be done through all this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Dean, my name's Alicia Loomis. I'm at Countrywood Estates here in Corona. That's where I've lived for approximately the last 16 years. I'm here for rent stabilization. As I've stated previously, this year they raised our rent 9.2%. If that wasn't bad enough, and we actually went around the whole park and got all 90 signatures requesting that they'd reconsider that, they decided to do a project on the RV parking where 2, maybe 3 vehicles park. One is the manager's. And now that's costing us $91,000, which they've broken down conveniently to approximately $17 more per month, in addition to the 9.2. Oh, and it got us new carpet after, I think, 26 years was the estimate. But we just can't do it. And there's a lot of people in the park that aren't here tonight, but there's a lot of people who can't be here. They're on disability, they're on Social Security, and I don't know what's going to happen to them. I'm grateful, I'm employed, I can still work right now. But as stated earlier, you know, the utilities are going up as well. In addition to that, we have to go out and take pictures of the meters that we have in our park to make sure that we're not overcharged, because it's happening. So I'd appreciate any of your time, all your time, any of your assistance, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I'm Natalie Lara. I'm a 32-year resident of Corona. I reside at Countrywood Mobile Home Park for the last 24 years. I'm here in regards to the rent stabilization also. As Alicia mentioned, they're making improvements to our park. I've lived there 24 years. They have not made any major improvements in that park in the last 24 years. I had a neighbor that just recently passed. She was there 6 years before me, and she also stated 30 years, and they have done nothing to that park. They are now charging us, as Alicia mentioned, to fix their walk paths and the RV parking. As she said, it comes out to $91,000, and they're distributing that between all 90 mobile homes, and we're gonna have to pay that. In the last 3 years, we've had a rent increase that has gone from 2.9%, 6.5%, and 9.2% was the last one. I just want to thank you for listening to us and anything that you guys can do to possibly help us. As she stated, I'm nervous for our elderly neighbors too. It just like becomes a certain point where they just can't keep their mobile homes anymore. The park gets control of them and they have nothing. That's just not fair. It's not fair. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
Hello, councilmen, women. The last time, my name is Leslie Jones. I live at 425 Yosemite Circle. The last time I was here, I think I spoke about thefts in our area and mail theft as well. And I just came to say thank you because Police Chief Newman actually spoke to me afterwards, and he sprung into action and connected with me with people that I needed to talk to, and there's been patrols in our area, and so far, no thefts. One of my neighbors' Ring cameras caught the patrols going through the neighborhood, and so it all worked out. So I just came to say thank you to Police Chief Newman and Mr. Steiner and Ms. Jacquet. I really appreciate you guys, and I will be definitely coming if there's any problems, and if there's not, I'd just like to hear what's going on, and thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Was that? Ms. Jacquet.
It's a shame the nice gas company lobbyist lady left already. I was just hearing on it was NPR the other day that natural gas prices are at or near historic lows. Seems to be everywhere but here at historic lows. To Tom's point, what are they doing about it? If it's cheaper everywhere else in the country and it's more expensive here, it kind of reminds me of the gas thing. You know, what's so special about our gas compared to everybody else's gas? As you can see on the screen, gas prices aren't rising. They had a little bit of a spike, but they didn't even go anywhere near where they have been historically. So, oh yeah, we don't make any money on gas and we're just passing it along. We're just, yeah, all right. So I wanted to talk about a good news item. Liberty Avenue got paved. So, and you know, that's a big deal. And they paved it legit. I think the curbs are going in if they're not already in. The telephone pole's getting moved over. It's over by the fence, you know, and that's just huge. I mean, I see something like that happen. As difficult as it was, it happened. It got done, you know, and it got done. Well, it got done primarily, I would say, the people most responsible for is the Planning Commission. You know, they listened to all the sides and thought it was reasonable that this get done. It wouldn't have got done if it hadn't been for the Planning Commission. They facilitated this whole thing getting done. And next on the list is Pat from Rexco. He right off the bat, he was willing to be conditioned to get this done. I think he probably bit off a little more than he thought he was going to, have to chew on. Definitely. It turned out to be a lot bigger thing than what he thought, but it got done. At the end of the day, the next person on the list is Steve Nolan. He was putting together the residents and putting together with Pat and, constantly herding all the cats together to stop screaming at each other and, and get everybody on the same page, and got it done. They dragged in, got out of the contractor. They all sat down and came up with a plan, and it's done. So One last, just kind of a housekeeping item. Several times in the last several months, I've come here and the doors have been locked. It's not fair for residents to come here to a public hearing to have the doors locked in the building. And it's not fair to these people working at the desk here to have to solve what seems to be a systemic kind of IT timing logistical issue. I can come in and tell them and they can scramble around and try to fix it, but it doesn't seem like it's in their wheelhouse to have to fix this. Somebody needs to fix it. And the security guard at the front at the desk is like telling people, well, you have to go in the other door over there. Well, if that's the case, then put a sign on this door to tell people to go to the other door, because people don't know and they show up and the door's locked. So, you go out, come back in, get locked out. So that shouldn't happen during a public meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, is there any more?
Mayor, we do not have any more speaker cards.
Okay. Moving on to public hearings. Let's see. Public hearing for City Council consideration of Amendment Number 4 to the 2019-2020 Action Plan to reallocate funds between approved community development block grant projects. Does any council member want a staff report? I'm sorry? I do. Anybody else? Jackie. Okay.
You guys have to call it. It has to be with the same level of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And coolness. Yeah, your guys'
I don't think
voice
any of
is
us
not
are
like
going to achieve
Leslie's.
that level of
Sorry.
coolness. Okay, Miss Lara, Community Assistance Manager, will you please provide the report?
Happy to. Good evening. Tonight, we are here for the staff's proposed Amendment 4 to the fiscal year 1920 amendment, specifically for the reallocation, again, of funds between the existing programs. Briefly, I'll go over the history of the program, what our accomplishments are. I'm also going to share what the county's accomplishments are as it relates to Corona residents, because that is as important as what we've done, because they've done so much in our community. And then also, finally, our proposed amendment. 2020 was a terrible year. COVID hit us hard, and our federal government took action really quickly. They allocated $2.2 trillion nationwide for different programs. Of that $2.2 trillion, $5 billion came specifically to CDBG to be allocated across the nation to entitlement cities. And that's where the city of Corona got its first and second tranche. Let me go back real quick. In total, I believe we got about $1.67 million. It was delivered to us in two different payments. The first one was in April of 2020. We did an action plan amendment, as Councilmember Casillas knows very well, because she was on the committee, helping us create the programs to assist our residents. At that time, we created the rental assistance program, and also we set aside about $176,000 for the city to get paid back for any PPE and any kind of related materials, services, and tools and supplies. The next allocation that we got was later that year in September 11th. And then we created the two additional programs, which was the mortgage assistance program and the PPE, the personal protective equipment for businesses in Corona. Here are our accomplishments to date. We have assisted 120 households. And for the small, I mean, it's significant, but for the small allocation, I think that we received, it's been a tremendous assistance. This is hundreds of people that have been assisted. Households are anywhere from one person to 5, 6, 7 people per household. And so this has been a tremendous assistance to our local residents. 100 of these are rental folks, and then 20 household. We've also assisted a small group of businesses. They received so much other assistance through other programs that this program really didn't end up being as successful, but we definitely wanted to make sure that we touched every community member, from residential rentals to mortgage owners to our business community. So we were trying to spread the assistance as much as we could. Here's the numbers from the county. The county had received over $50 million, and I don't have the exact number, and that was to provide assistance countywide. So residents of Corona, people of unincorporated areas, all within Riverside County were eligible also for rental assistance. And in our city, as you can see with these stats, they assisted over $23 million worth. So add the $800,000 that we've put into it, $23 million in addition to that. And so thousands of our citizens were assisted during the program. It's been since closed, unfortunately. They've spent all the money and no new allocations are coming. This is a quick, just statistical slide here that shows the funded amounts per program, where we are with our spending. We have to date spent almost every single dime in the rental, and that's why we're here. We're here to reallocate some additional funds with your approval. And we're here also to ask to close the PPE program and transfer all the funds that are left in that program to the rental assistance. So it looks like we're looking at $161,000 additional dollars to be put into the rental, which would help an additional 14 households. And we would leave $60,000 in our mortgage assistance and zero out the PPE business assistance program. This pretty much summarizes what I just said. If approved, we would transfer a total of $161,000 to our rental assistance program. That would assist 14 additional households, maybe a little bit more because we're averaging about $8,500 per application, so we could probably squeak in a couple more there. And the mortgage assistance, we would leave it open for a period of time. Under the action plan amendment, we would also look for your authorization to allow staff, after a few months, if we see that the mortgage program isn't active, we could just transfer the rest of that money into rental, because we do know that rental is a need, will continue to be a need. That's what the funding looks like today, prior to approving this amendment. Right now, we have allocated to date $124,000 for the PPE, $350,000 for the mortgage, and over $800,000 to rental assistance. If approved, then the next column over, the PPE would have a total of $35,000 and change in there. And in other words, we've already allocated and reimbursed that funding amount. And the emergency housing needs for the mortgage would have a total allocation $274,000, and we would increase our rental assistance budget to over $1 million. And I'd be remiss if I did not talk about our citizens' participation. It is very important under our CDBG program to obtain citizen participation. And so we do that obviously through notices on our website, English and Spanish. We publish them in the newspaper. We also have it on our websites, and that invites public comment for any proposed changes to our action plan. So I'm here to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Lara. I like how you started by just simply saying 2020 was a terrible year. There's no other way to say that. Moving on. The public hearing is now open. Ms. Edwards, has the city clerk's office received correspondence regarding this item?
Mayor, we did not receive correspondence.
Ms. Edwards, did we receive any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards.
Thank you. Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Do I have any questions or comments from my colleagues?
I just want to say thank you. And this is a great opportunity to continue to help folks that need it. And so thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Steiner?
What?
Yep. Well, I think that there's probably questions from Ms. Jagger.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Ms. Lara, thank you so much. I appreciate your diligence in the presentation and your work on this. Really, what we're seeing here are statistics, but what it translates to is hours of work by you and your team to personally assist Corona residents, to help keep them in their homes during a year of high volatility and a lot of uncertainty. So it looks like just numbers on a page now, but it's stories, it's heart-wrenching stories from a lot of our residents. So thank you for taking that care and for helping them. And for having the foresight to write a program that allowed us to be as flexible as possible so that when we got to a moment like this, we could shift and be nimble. I have 2 questions real quick. The first is, could folks who received assistance from the city of Corona also receive county assistance for rental? Did that happen?
That did happen.
Okay. Do we know how many folks that was?
That I do not know.
Okay.
We did not ask
Mm-hmm.
when they applied one way or the other. The county didn't ask, we didn't ask.
Yeah, but we also helped people, right? Because they could only come to us one time for one grant, and if there was still a need, there was this warm transition, right, between the team and the county?
That is correct.
Thank you for that. My second question is, I can't recall, did we write because the further away we get from the peak of the pandemic, or at least the peak of the uncertainty, I think there will be likely fewer and fewer applicants in the city who can reach back and say, this is the reason why we need rental assistance. Is there any flexibility with the remaining funds after this modification that we vote on for it to just become general rental assistance?
It has to be for COVID related.
Okay.
So, but we're at the point in our program where they are self-certifying.
Okay.
For that assistance.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Well, thank you again for your work, all of you. Appreciate it.
Laura has been really
Thank
the
you.
executor of this program. The forefront was painful and hard because of the lack of guidance, as you'll remember. But once the program was created, I can't say enough about Laura Huerta. I mean,
Laura, thank you
tremendous
so much. We
heart
appreciate you
that she
taking care of our
shows
people.
to our residents, patience, guidance. She has been tremendous.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a testament to one of our stated goals of having a high-performing government where we can look down the road and look into the future and write things accordingly so that we have flexibility. One of the painful discoveries of becoming an elected official is understanding how slow government works. So even even in that mantra, you guys are doing everything that you can to effectively and efficiently move this money around to help as many people as we can. So thank you so much for your efforts and for leading the city through this. So I really appreciate that. Looks like we already have a motion. I will second the motion. Please vote. Oh, Wes seconded the motion. Okay, that passes 5-0. Moving on to administrative reports. We have an administrative report on zero-emission bus rollout implementation plan. Sudesh Paul, Transit Program Manager, will present the item.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for allowing me to present the information on zero-emission transition requirement that's for our city's transit fleet. So why are we here today? In 2018, California Air Resources Board adopted the Innovative Clean Transit ICT regulation, which sets the goal to have all transit buses transition to zero-emission buses by 2040. As we are the public transit agency, it does apply, the requirement does apply to our city's transit program as well. Because we are required to commit to this requirement, city staff and other small bus operators asked RCTC for assistance in developing the ZEB program. In June 2021, RCTC secured a grant from Caltrans to conduct ZEB rollout and implementation plans for the small bus operators. In April 2022, RCTC awarded a contract to CTE to conduct the necessary steps to complete the required bus rollout plans for the bus operators in the region as well as the City of Corona. So we asked the City Council to receive information for discussion and set a future meeting date for March 15 for the selection of a zero-emission bus fuel technology. With us, we have our CTC staff, Eric DeHate and Laurel Morel. And via Zoom, we also have our consultant from CTE. Our CTC staff is here today to help answer any questions regarding funding and oversight of this particular project. I'll now hand it over to Savannah, the project manager at CTE. She will walk you through the zero-emission bus transition financial analysis related to City of Corona's transit services.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, especially at a distance. I know it's always preferred to be in person, but I appreciate the opportunity to support the city from afar this evening. So first up, I'm not sure if the slides are still showing for you all, but I will go ahead and just let folks know when to change it. But my name is Savannah Gupton. I'm a senior consultant at the Center for Transportation and the Environment, also known as CTE, because that's a mouthful. And we specialize in supporting cities and municipalities, as well as public transit operators in adopting successfully zero-emission technologies. So we believe in the benefits of transitioning to this technology, but we know there are a lot of challenges, especially related to cost, which we'll discuss tonight. So we're always here to support that. And tonight we're going over a planning study in order to support the City of Corona to meet this regulation Sudesh went over. So next slide, please. So in order to understand the conditions of transportation today in Corona and make sure that we're always meeting the ridership demands of the city and never ever reducing them because of a technology change, we've created the existing conditions analysis. This was completed in October 2022. Now transit service does change a lot, but we need to take a snapshot in order to build a transition of procurement cycles for a successful zero emission transition. So that was supplied in your staff report. And then we'll also discuss the financial analysis, which is how to take that snapshot from today or October 2022 and move to zero emission to be compliant with CARB's mandate. And our goal is ultimately to get a zero emission bus rollout plan ready for the City of Corona to submit to CARB to come into compliance with the regulation. Next slide. So first, as Sudesh mentioned, the CARB ICT regulation, Innovative Clean Transit Regulation, was adopted in 2018. It's applicable only to transit fleets, so that's large buses and cutaways, so those kind of truck style or van style transit mobility vehicles that weigh over 14,000 pounds. And the goal is to get to zero emission completely, but that's not the requirement. What is required is that the City of Corona and other groups, transit providers, that they submit a plan on how to come into compliance. And then additionally, that each year, in that table on the right side of the screen, demonstrates that each year that they comply with the amounts of total new bus purchases that year, 25% in the case of 2026, have to be zero emission. So they do have to report at the end of every year that they were compliant, that they bought battery electric or fuel cell technology vehicles to make that goal of zero emission. Now, this regulation did not come with a large pot of money. That's why the financial analyses are really important to demonstrate to CARB the needs for funding opportunities beyond this. And then there also help the Commission and Corona plan for meeting this mandate starting in 2026. Notably, Corona actually doesn't buy buses till 2028. They're on a replacement cycle at the minimum service life of the vehicle. And so the first year that they're going to need to comply is with 25% of those 7 buses being zero emission in 2028. Go on to the next slide, please. So what is in this plan? What do we need to tell them? And that is that we have to demonstrate a plan to get to zero. So we have to demonstrate procurement cycles that slowly phase out combustion engines from now or from that first purchase year in 2026, or in the case of Corona, 2028 to 2040, that we're aiming to get to a zero emission fleet, completely zero emission. And that means that Corona, the City of Corona, is operating only battery electric technology and fuel cell technology, or one or the other. We also want to best steward the funds of the community and taxpayers, so we never retire a vehicle before it needs to retire. We also will be identifying the type of technology that we'll select, which is what the motion of this action piece is. And then we will demonstrate a purchasing schedule. So how do we bring the city into compliance with those purchasing rules at 25% for the first 3 years and 100% in 2029? We'll discuss in the meeting where charging infrastructure goes or where hydrogen fueling technology goes. And then most importantly, or very importantly, is that how are we reducing air pollution to those groups that are affected the most by over-polluted air? So that's labeled as a disadvantaged community, and that definition is available online. But basically, what we want to know is that we're making equitable environmental action as we transition the fleet to zero emission, and that those zero emission vehicles are running in these communities that need that air pollution mitigation the most. Additionally, we never want to leave the workforce behind. We'll be submitting a training plan and a plan for the operators who drive buses today in Corona or maintain buses today in Corona to bring them forward or bring them along with the technology change and create new jobs in this field. And lastly, we all have to pay for it, and so we'll be identifying funding opportunities in the plan as well. Next slide. So, in order to understand all of these items that we listed out below, we need to understand what is the cost of this transition. What is the actual dollar projection of the dollar cost of moving to zero emission fleets? So the buses, the fleet capital costs, those are more expensive vehicles. The fuel cost is changing from hydrogen to hydrogen or electricity. Those costs are different operating costs for the transit providers. The vehicles also experience different maintenance. And additionally, I mentioned before, we need different fuels. So we'll need to have infrastructure that supports that fueling. We want to wrap that up into a total cost of ownership so that we can demonstrate the cost of the transition and the funding that we'll need to prepare to get from the state or go for grants to accommodate. And we want to talk about what technology ultimately is going to best serve the city of Corona. Next slide. So first, I hinted to this before, but I want to make sure that I touch on it a little bit closer. I think most folks are familiar with battery electric bus technology. This is a bit of a more mature market. But the limitation of battery electric buses is that there's quite a bit less energy on board than a traditionally fueled vehicle, so CNG, diesel, or gas. And so sometimes in order to do the work of one bus, you need two buses on a single charge to perform this work. Other considerations is that they fuel much longer, so they're charging overnight. Many of you are familiar with that. And then they do cost more, so that's another consideration. And the infrastructure costs increase as you buy a bus, usually per bus or per two buses. You need a charger. That can get costly when you're operating a full fleet of zero emission or battery electric buses. Additionally, the fuel changes, so you go from buying fuel from a certain provider to buying electricity from the utility. And then fuel cell buses, the other alternative or the complementary technology, is more comparable to battery electric buses. So the fueling time is much the same. It's fueled like a traditional fuel dispenser into the receptacle in 6 to 10 minutes. It has greater range on board. So if you've ever heard of range anxiety, there's a fair bit less of that with a fuel cell bus than there can be with battery electric. But this vehicle, because it is much newer, is significantly more expensive. And the infrastructure is an early expensive cost, but it scales well. So you do one-time large projects for this. So we'd like to talk about a little bit of the differences here and keep those in your mind as we go through the opportunities for transition that we explored for Corona, or on behalf of Corona and in partnership with Corona. Next slide. So you'll see at the bottom of the graphic, we have something called baseline, battery electric only, mixed fleet, and fuel cell only. So the city of Corona needs to decide how to get its fleet to zero and through what technology that is going to be best served. And so there is a potential to use only one of the technologies or to use them together. Using them together can offer greater resilience. So if the grid goes down, you still have those hydrogen buses to use. If you do not have hydrogen supply, your electric buses are still available there to support. So this is a great option for both technologies where you can use electrics and keep the cost lower on those smaller routes and then supplement with hydrogen. However, battery electric also comes with energy solutions. On-route charging or midday depot charging can get you the energy you need to perform service and keep your fleet simple. Alternatively, a completely fuel cell fleet can offer you simplicity of a single fueled fleet, single fueling infrastructure, single training, but that cost is a lot higher. So that is the challenge that is posed. The decision here is the challenge that's posed to the city of Corona today. So as we examine the leftmost bar, so the baseline is what the city of Corona would be spending in vehicle capital costs over an 18-year period. Now, from the left to the right, we see how much more those costs go up if they're not buying CNG buses, but instead, respectively, buying battery electric, fuel cell and battery electric, or fuel cell. So the important graphic here.
Can I ask a question really
Is there a
quick?
question?
The fuel cell only cost, is that what cost per gallon are we talking for hydrogen? Because I know that's the big driver of the cost. I was just at a conference last week where the stated goal is to bring it to about $4 to $5 a gallon versus, what is it, like 9 or 11 right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we use $8.68 today for the price. So $8.68 per kilogram. We'll see that in the next 3 slides. And I'll get into a little bit why, if you don't mind waiting.
That's fine.
On
Sure.
that
Go ahead.
Topic. So, okay, thank you. So anyway, this is the bus vehicle capital cost. And you can see that there's a slight escalation in pricing to replace the fleet only. So next slide, please. All right. And as we got into a perfect time for that question, as we talked about, the price of hydrogen is still very high today. That's because it was not traditionally a transportation fuel. It was used for hospitals and research and laboratories. And now you can imagine if you're using something in that use case and suddenly you need to power a bunch of vehicles with it, there's quite a demand on the molecule itself. So there are many governmental activities going on to create more hydrogen, renewable hydrogen in the state today in order to make it a cost viable solution. So we do use $8.68, that's $8.68 per kilogram to come up with this graphic. So just for reference, we want to demonstrate what a single year of a full fuel cell fleet fuel operations would look like against the cost of a fully CNG and a battery electric and a mixed fleet. The reason we use that cost today, to answer the question from before, is that is what has been negotiated in 2022. And so we're more comfortable with saying, preparing for what is a demonstrated cost that transit operators are paying than making an overly optimistic or an overly pessimistic projection in the price of fuel. So that is maybe the most variable column on the page, which is something to keep in mind. But generally, the interesting point here is that those zero emission fuels, unsurprisingly, do cost a bit more. But there's a nice comparison there on that operating a fleet of these technologies between the baseline activity. Next slide. All right, so maintenance does change on the vehicles. You've probably heard of battery warranties on light duty vehicles. They're very important because the batteries do not always function the same in year 1 as they will in year 6. And so we always want to warranty those batteries. That comes at a maintenance cost, a preventative maintenance cost for the fleet operator. And we demonstrate that there so that no matter which zero emission technology Corona decides to elect, there is going to be an annual operating increase. And then there's also a lot of parity between the technologies. So price isn't always everything when you're picking a zero emission technology. Next slide. And then I think second to lastly, we have some infrastructure options here. So first up, so baseline, first of all, you'll notice it's not there. The orange has gone. And the reason being is that cost is 0. So Corona already has what it needs to operate CNG as far as this study goes. And so they do not need to add infrastructure. So no matter what, this transition is going to cost them in a capital expenditure project for zero emission. Now we want to try to mediate that cost, make sure that it's kind of the easiest to manage. And so battery electric chargers are more inexpensive than a fueling station. And so those come in kind of with the lowest cost upgrades to the depot. You'll see a few things here. You'll see the mixed fleet scenarios in the middle and the fuel cell fleets on the right side of the screen. And those are the scenarios you should be familiar with from the other side. But you'll notice this shared and independent infrastructure. So hydrogen is really best suited when you're fueling a lot of vehicles. It makes that high expenditure of a station well worth the dollar. You build it once, you set it and forget it. And so that can be very useful aspect of an infrastructure project, but that initial cost to build is quite high. It's like building a new CNG station. They're very similar. And so if two operators in the county were to share a station, that would reduce the cost burden on each operator. So we want to put that in front of folks as an option as well, just to demonstrate the scalability of the technology. So these are all capital infrastructure fueling costs. Next slide. Thank you. So we wrap it all up into a neat little comparison package. Remember that the big item of interest for CARB and for funding is that difference between the very first column and any of the other columns. So what is the actual cost of the transition? Corona was going to need to spend that baseline chart on the analogous cost items to battery electric or fuel cell technology anyway. So what's that added cost that needs to be funded by the state or the federal government in order to make this sustainable goal a reality? And so we'd like to compare all the scenarios here just to get an idea of how similar they can be. Any price fluctuation can drive up or down the cost. And so that's important to consider. What is the best technology? This helps folks plan for their budgets, but really none of these differences are big enough to drive the decision on technology. What we really want to encourage is that the city understands the technologies and picks the one that will suit them the most. Next slide. As with every great decision, it's good to consider the benefits and the drawbacks. And I'm going to have to look on my other screen because it's a little small for me there. But the benefits and the drawbacks of battery electric is that this is a much older market. So it's been around a bit longer than fuel cell. Because of that, there's a lot more entrants in the market. You get better competitive rates because of that. And then you also have a few more kinks worked out in that technology. It's very easy to install charging technology on site at the depot. Corona already has the land to do that. They can stick the chargers on site and just plug their vehicles in. And it is the lowest cost option. Now, the drawbacks of battery electric technology is that if a grid fails, I mentioned this before, if we have a public safety shutdown, you cannot charge or fuel those buses. So that can be a real difficulty faced by the transit operators. This technology switch does require an on-route charger. On-route charging is when the vehicle is in service and adds energy to the vehicle while it's out picking up passengers. Now, this can be an expensive project. You can need to get land to put it on at a good location for where the routes are overlapping. That cost is not included here, so that could drive that bar up much higher on the infrastructure. Secondly, it requires major infrastructure and operations restructuring. So as you phase out, you'll need to put these pedestals and chargers into the depot. I also understand that there's a water issue in the depot as well. So that's important to consider for the project. Next up, mixed fleet. So two technologies. We talked about greater resiliency. And last, but the cons are that you have two subfleets. So that can be more operationally challenging. And then you have to have two infrastructure projects. And then pros to fuel cell, it's more similar to a regularly fueled fleet. And the fuel price is very expensive, but there will likely be fluctuation in the downward direction. Lastly, hydrogen may require additional acquisition for land. So other considerations, next slide, please. Thank you. So we talk about shared infrastructure. I'm sorry, I'm one ahead. So just a reminder that this is based on a snapshot of Corona service. They do have the right and should change their service to meet the, should and will change the service to meet their service area. And so these are living documents and should be revisited often. And then the operational costs of ZEB project managers or grant writers to manage this are not included. And scheduling changes can disrupt some of this transition. So those are things to consider. And we're just using today's pricing, which can be a challenge for long-view planning. Last slide from me. Next one, thank you. So EV rate schedules also provide variability in the fuel, so that can challenge the decision. And while shared infrastructure provides cost savings, it does add operational deadhead, so the vehicle is having to go somewhere further than their typical operational route. And then I mentioned the single and multiple technologies. So I can stop there and pass it back to Sudesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Savannah. So our local partners, RTA and Sunline, are pursuing fuel cell electric per their submitted ICT rollout plan. Omnitrans had started off with battery electric, but is now implementing a mixed fleet solution to include fuel cell electric buses. Similar to City of Corona, the 4 of the other small bus operators are also in the process of reviewing options for the ICT rollout. Our ZEB transition planning process includes us being here today to provide you with the necessary information on the 2 technologies. Attached to the staff report is the existing conditions report, which was used to form the financial analysis that you heard about today, and a detailed 50-deck slide of the financial analysis. At the March 15th meeting, we will be requesting approval on the technology selection. CT will prepare the rollout plan based on the approved technology. Then at the June 7th council meeting, staff will request approval or adoption of the ICT rollout plan in order to submit it to CARB before July 1st. Finally, RCTC staff will compile the 5 ZEB rollout plans or many rollout plans for all operators to develop a countywide financial strategy for future funding and implementation to be completed by October 2023. Any questions?
Ooh, that was quite a lot. Do any of my colleagues have any questions?
I do.
Of course you do.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. And the biggest question is, I know that the technology is changing. I'm very aware of what Sunline's doing. They present to RCTC all the time, so I've heard about their challenges, but also they've been very successful at attracting investment and grant money, and they generate their own hydrogen on site, and that has its own unique challenges. And I realize that we're having this meeting or this future meeting in March, but we don't have to actually purchase anything until 2028.
That is correct.
So why do we have to pick now?
You want to go?
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Councilmember Speak and Commissioner Speak. The ICT mandate requires all the small operators to supply an ICT rollout plan by the end of this fiscal year. So we have to at least identify that we're going to be going and planning to go to zero emission technology. What fleet composition, as you've seen from like Omnitrans, they picked one and then they changed their minds as they realized that they needed more range. So Corona and the other operators have the ability to change their mind, even though they submit a rollout plan, as long as they continue to move in that zero emission technology.
So there's no, so us picking one, is there any other benefit? Is there any other benefit to us picking one or the other than it? Right now, it's estimated cost, but there's no cost to us this time. But we, again, as you said, with Omnitrans, we could change our mind if we pick that's something that's mixed and we find that battery technology gets way better and it's cheaper. We can do all batteries as long as it's zero emission. Correct?
That part's correct. Yes.
Okay. So. Yeah, that's it. Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've been reading a lot about the hydrogen. It's very interesting. I kind of equate it to cell phone technology. This country, we held on to landlines for a very long time because there was a lot of a significant investment in lines and that sort of thing, and we pushed off wide expansion of cell towers. Meanwhile, in places like Europe and other places in the world where they could easily and cheaper put out cells, their cell tower technology is way ahead of ours, or has been, up until now. But so I kind of see the same thing with the hydrogen. There's a huge push at both the governor's office and with there's actually a couple of groups that are together that are challenging, trying to get some of the hydrogen hub money that's being put out by the federal government. And I think California is going to end up being one of the centers that is going to get one of those technologies. And the technology is really going to focus itself on heavy industry and heavy buses, heavy trucks and buses and that sort of thing. So I guess I don't see a challenge or anything, the reason why we have to pick, or be, I know we have to pick something, but I don't know if as an aspirational pick, anything that will help us attract grant funding or anything else later on. So if we say we want to do fuel cell, will that help attract money to us at some later date?
The only other thing I could suggest also is that after you do decide to pick a technology, is before while the purchase rule is in 2028, you still have to install the infrastructure, which would come earlier. So at some point, you'll have to decide even though you decide to do whatever composition you want to do, at some point you're going to have to do a master plan of your fleet, of your facilities, and then actually install that infrastructure a little bit earlier.
So if we have there is a fueling station in Corona that's actually building a hydrogen fuel station on the west end of Corona, and it should be almost ready now. That's the Raj's service station, mobile station on West 6th. If that, I saw the shared version, if there was a way to, I don't know, I don't know what the options are there, but but it sounds like we're not pigeonholing ourselves, but it's just interesting. But the fact that by 2028 that we have to purchase something and we have to budget for either install of battery technology charging or somehow make a deal with Raj over on West 6th Street. I think I like Raj. Been in town a long time. I used to buy donuts from him when I was a kid. Yeah, anyway, just an interesting thought. But thank you.
Thank you, and I do apologize. I should have asked. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards.
Okay, and then did we have any more comments, Roy Holly?
I have one. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the recommendation is just that this was a receive and file for discussion for a future meeting date of March 15th. So thank you very much. Looking forward to that discussion. All right, moving on to legislative matters. There are none. Boards and commissions, reports from the city council, commissioners and staff. Let's see, receive and file for the Library Board of Trustees report update on January 31st, 2023. Let's see. There's not an actual file. There's not an actual report for that. Yeah. Yep. There we go. Planning and Housing Commission. There are none. Parks and Recreation Commission, receive and file the Parks and Recreation Commission update for January 10th, 2023. Oh boy, here we go. Moving on to regional meeting reports. First, I'm not even going to do it anymore because I get no love. So the first regional meeting report, we have an update from Councilmember Jackie Casillas on the League of California Cities Community Services Committee meeting of January 27th, 2023. If you could stop laughing.
Good luck, Claire.
Oh, God. Once I get started. And it's really your guys' fault.
You know how to make me laugh. Okay. I guess I'll try and get it together. On January 27th, we had the first of 3 policy committee meetings for the Community Services Policy Committee for the League of Cities. And again, I'm the chair for this committee. We have a total of 3 meetings. The first 2 are on Zoom, and the third, I'm not even going to turn that way. Jim is really, oh my gosh.
Listening intently.
You can't.
Mayor, can you control this meeting, please?
Mayor, can you please tell Jim not to look at me anymore?
Councilmember Steiner, could you please look the other way?
He frightens me too.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I will, I'm trying. Okay, so at this meeting, we had a really great panel presentation, and I referenced it last time we spoke about the league. We had a panel presentation on the California Continuum of Care, and we had our very own Karen Roper join us, as well as Miss Helene Schneider, who's a regional coordinator with the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. And so this was a 1-hour panel discussion where we had both a federal view and a local view on addressing homelessness through the continuums of care. And on this committee, on this committee, we have leaders like you and I from across the state who are all trying to address this very complicated issue. And so many of them had no idea that it was through their continuums of care that they are able to receive funds to address homelessness, and how it is that these federal agencies interact with the local and state. So it was just really fruitful to be able to share what it is that's happening here locally and to provide that information to colleagues across the state and hopefully raise everyone's not just awareness but development so that they can bring these opportunities to their own local cities. So it was really wonderful, and another great example of how Karen is not only working on addressing homelessness solutions here at home, but also doing so at the statewide level. We had a legislative agenda provided by our Cal Cities lobbyist, and there was a recommendation to bring forward a fentanyl a recommendation to address fentanyl on the state level, and we voted to adopt it. It's like a statement in support of addressing fentanyl and its impact on our communities. We then had a conversation about our strategic priorities and reviewed survey results from our colleagues' cities, and ultimately had a good conversation with our members about what it is that's important in their communities and what they want to see out of this committee. So we will be addressing issues like homelessness, parks, access and open space, early childhood learning, childcare, and youth programs, and I look forward to reporting on our next committee meeting.
Thank you very much. And if you can remain composed
I'm
for an
not looking at
update
Jim, so I think I might be able to do the next one.
on WRCOG.
Okay, so WRCOG's meeting, let me pull up my notes from that. I'll be better at that one. Okay, so, oh gosh, so you see what I'm working with here, right? Okay, so WRCOG, one of the main things that we do there is we manage the TUMF program activities. So there was an approved reimbursement where we authorize a reimbursement of over $2 million for the Menifee Road. Okay, moving on. We also had a report out on remote public meeting requirements. So our attorney at WRCOG, our counsel, actually wanted to talk to us about the expiration of AB 361. So right now we've been operating, all municipal governments have been operating under AB 361, the emergency ordinance because of COVID-19, and that's allowing council members, municipal members of any body to Zoom in to meetings, but that's ended. And there was a discussion by the body about whether or not to continue and implement AB 2449, which provides limited exceptions to teleconference provisions of the Brown Act. There was a hearty discussion. I participated. I shared the fact that, I actually became pregnant and had a child during the AB 361 rules, and it allowed me to be able to participate in our council meetings from home, which was critical. And so from that perspective, I'd like for us to continue to have flexibility for members. That being said, it seems like there might still be a way to make it work, but my colleagues at WRCOG were not interested in looking into AB 2449. So we are moving forward, and direction was provided for staff to go back to the old ways. And direction was also provided for us to continue offering Zoom meetings for WRCOG for the general public. Lastly, we are looking for nominations for the 2023 General Assembly Community Service Awards. This is an award that our very own Karen Alexander won last year. And these recipients exhibit exemplary volunteerism. They are not a current elected public official. They're not currently, they can't be currently employed by WRCOG. And there are two categories, individual and group. I would love to ask my colleagues and our public if you have ideas. I really would love to, nominate another Corona individual or Corona group for this service award. So come to me so we can get that submitted. And I got through that, kind of.
Thank you very much, Council Member Casillas, proving once again why you are sometimes the adult on this elected dais.
Sometimes.
Yep. All right. Moving on to everybody's favorite updater. Update from Councilmember West Speak on the Southern California Association of Government SCAG Transportation Policy Meeting, February 2nd, 2023.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It was a 2-day, actually, well, really a 1 day, but they spread it across 2 days. We heard a couple of presentations from the future of travel, future of roads, some projects in the Wisconsin area. However, the second day was really kind of focused on re-looking at our projects, the ones we did back in 2019, and how much the funding has changed and direction from the state has changed. So we're going to be reopening those projects and re-looking at which ones we think can be funded and which ones will potentially be funded by the state. So realigning that look to ensure that we use as much other people's money. However, as was highlighted on the second day, there are quite a bit of needs on the transportation side. And so the idea of a sales tax measure was also talked about and will be debated again at the at RCTC in the next couple of months. So I'll be updating you all as that goes on. It should be fun. And that, let's see, so we're going to be, I proposed basically refocusing on addressing bottlenecks, especially the ones in the 15, and focusing on traffic relief, and then pivoting to active transportation and finding ways to capitalize on what the state has put forward. On the second day, we talked about micromobility, all kinds of other fun stuff. However, the folks in the eastern part of the county have already expressed support if there isn't unanimous, or at least there isn't a majority of folks that want to proceed forward with the sales tax for transportation. They're willing to go on their own and do their own sales tax. In fact, they did some polling and their numbers came in around 80%, 70+%. With this new state law that was approved back just a couple of years ago, it says that you have to have 2/3 majority in order to get that, and they're going to be doing some polling and some other fun stuff, and then coming back to a smaller committee, a budget and taxation committee that I was asked to be on, so it should be fun. It's 2 folks on the western side and 5 people from the eastern part of the county. There is a lot of support in the eastern part of the county to tax, because they have a lot of transportation issues, not with congestion, however, but they do have a lot of natural disaster type issues. So you'll hear more from that in the next couple of meetings. Let's see, and then I'll just move on to the next one if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor.
Please,
All right.
the next two.
Great. I'll do those for sure. Yeah, I actually think I skipped the SCAG one, but on the 8th, there was the final approval for the included or additional design for the Santa Ana River Trail. The biggest news of the day was really there's going to be a call for projects for the first time in 10 years. It's $115 million. It's come from the state. That will be available, actually $35 million from TUMP and $85 million from the state to individual cities. However, there's going to be an equity goal, meaning that the requests will be limited to 10% of the total, which is $131 million, and individual cities will be limited to no more than 20% of the total. And the idea is to spread that out. Cities will have 8 weeks to respond. And there is a two-year time limit to express that funding, and they're going to be looking for projects that are in construction or design phase only. And their matching funds will be very, very important in making sure we get that. So hopefully we have, I know that I can see Director Compu is shaking his head that we have some projects, so I'm really happy about that. We did have a discussion about AB 361. I argued for the opposite of Councilmember Casillas, and there are folks that travel from far away to get there. They're coming from Blythe and further out. So I did argue that the public deserves the right to look us all in the eye and talk to us, or zoom in to talk to us if they need to. But they deserve the right to see us all at once. We ended up settling on a hybrid model, which is basically there'll be folks can either come into downtown Riverside and into the Board of Supervisors chambers, or they can go to a CVAG location, either that or the Palm Desert they're going to be determining, or a location in French Valley, which is at Supervisor Washington's office. So they'll come back to us and design a location, but that it looks like it's going to be probably those three locations. For committee meetings, but however, meetings with all of us, well, everybody has to be in the same room. And lastly, there's going to be additional call for projects for SB 821 funding, and that's for sidewalk, bike, and trails. It's very competitive. It's a $6.9 million pot of money. I don't think we've had a project there for a while, but I know that other cities have done quite well on their trail projects. In fact, I think Menifee ended up getting about $2.3 million the last time this came out, and they were able to finish their trail project. So I'm very happy about that. And lastly, the sitting on the SCAG Transportation Committee, there was 2.5 hours of talking about air quality permitting and active transportation approaches and complete streets policy. All good stuff, really talking more about finding ways that we can sustain and shift and address changing travel patterns. However, as I reminded the folks in the committee that, those things haven't happened in our area yet. Folks are still stuck in their cars until we can actually get stuff that will move people efficiently. We did have a nice discussion about good movement. And supply chain, and looking at making sure that part of our Selco Connect plan looks at everything from an expansion of freight projects, and as well as last mile freight program and regional comprehensive goods movement plan will be our next thing. And then lastly, we got a really good, interesting, and probably part frightening briefing from the FHWA, their California division, and they are looking at ways to bolster the tax revenue for federal tax. Has not changed since 1994, and heavy truck taxes are, I think, somewhere between I think it's either $600 or $1,200 a year. And with so many vehicles going electric, there's no thing that funds the federal tax. So they're looking at exploring vehicle miles traveled and taxing folks that have electric vehicles on their electric use or their actual miles. So stay tuned for more fun. So when that progresses a little further, she's supposed to come back and give us, there's a couple of pilot studies throughout the state that, or throughout not just California, but in different parts of the country to make sure they continue to get money to repair our roads. And that's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Moving on to Vice Mayor Richens on the Riverside County Habitat Conservation Agency meeting of February 9th, 2023.
Thank you, Mayor. I can make this really short. Kept getting emails, am I going to go to this meeting or not? And then they called Jackie to call me to ask if I was going to go to the meeting or not. And so after Jackie told me I had to go, I went. And it's all about the kangaroo rat. They're still working with this thing. It's all over the place. There's people in Pendleton counting it, and God knows where else. But the rat's doing good. It's going to live, and that's really all I need to report on that.
Okay, thank you. I did have a meeting of RCA on February 6th, but it was all closed session, so there's nothing to report out. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards or written comments from the public for the regional updates?
Mayor, we do not have written comments or speaker cards.
Thank you. City Attorney reports and comments, Mr. Derleth? Okay. City Manager report and comments, Mr. Ellis?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple of comments. First, a quick update on some of the actions taken since the RCTC 55-hour closure of the 91 freeway a couple of weeks back. Our McKinley Street grade separation team has reached out to the management at Costco. They did that on Monday and provided some project updates and information to sign up for email and text alerts related to the projects, and they were grateful for that information. We also reached out to the shopping center's property manager last week and provided the same information to allow them to forward that to all of the tenants in the shopping center. Our team has also received approval from the shopping center property manager to place signage on site to help facilitate circulation and egress from the shopping center. As for the traffic signal timing, our traffic engineering is working with the project team to model the McKinley corridor from Promenade to Magnolia, and timing parameters and lane configuration may be adjusted depending on the results of that traffic model and approval from Caltrans. So happy to report out on that, some work that's being done there. Finally, I just wanted to take a moment to briefly recognize a member of our team tonight, Denzel Maxwell, AKA Denzel Washington, our assistant to the city manager. Tonight is Denzel's last council meeting with us, having recently been named the assistant city manager for Fort Collins, Colorado. We've been really fortunate to have Denzel on our team, and we're grateful for his many contributions to our community. We wish him all the best in his career. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Let's see. I just wanted to add in regards to Mr. Maxwell. Yeah, don't say that. It's going to get me confused. You have been an exemplary addition to our team. We thank you for all of your hard work and service to the city of Corona. We wish you well in Fort Collins. Also, just an FYI, I did email your new boss, City Manager DiMartino, and gave her a glowing recommendation. But I'm still sad to see you go, but we're excited that you are moving up in your career, and we expect good things for you. Moving on to my colleagues, do we have any comments? Mr. Speak.
Thank you. I also would like to wish Mr. Waxwell, all good things. I will never, ever be going to that city just in boycott because you left. I hold a grudge. No, I'm just kidding. Very, very grateful for not only your assistance with several of my items that I frequently tax the city manager to do, but thank you for always being open to share and truly helped us push forward. So thank you. Just a couple things. There's going to be, and speaking of Mr. Maxwell's his signature project here, the community conversations that are happening tomorrow in this room, 6 p.m. Correct? 6 p.m. If you didn't make this last year, please come this year. It's going to be really great. The speaker list looks really good, and it's a wonderful opportunity to hear a different perspective. And again, thank you for pushing that forward. On the 23rd next week, we're going to have some fun. You're going to be, those of you that have tickets or would like to have tickets to Ladders and Linguini at the library, Friends of the Corona Public Library are going to be putting this on. It is a wonderful event. The one thing I think that people enjoy about it most is there's no one talking like me. It's great. You just come in, you sit down with your friends, you walk around, you have a glass of wine, you get linguine or spaghetti served to you by our own Corona firefighters, and you get to do it all in the library. So two of my favorite things, eating and being in the library. So I'll be there and hope I see lots of folks. I think they're almost sold out. They got a few more tickets left. Yeah, not sold out. Yeah, so it sells out every year, so I'm surprised. I think we expanded. They are sold out. Oh, I'm sorry, I teased you. So if you can't have spaghetti, you can have chili at the Fire and Ice, at chili competition over at Dos Lagos. And if you go to the Circle City Rotary, they would love to sell you a ticket. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Steiner?
Yeah, I just want to thank Dr. Turner and her community service team for the community cleanup last Saturday at Skyline. They had another great turnout, and thanks to all of the volunteers who showed up and cleaned up Hagador and Tin Mine and Skyline. It was a lot of fun, so thank you. And Denzel, congrats, brother.
Mr. Maxwell, thank you so much. We're going to miss you. You've done such a great job, both leading and managing, our legislative advocacy, our switch over to a more active advocate role for the city at the state, and that's been a handful, especially with some people who ask for a lot of updates. And then, it jumps you. Yeah. But then also with community conversations. That's been one of my favorite initiatives that has come out as of late. And it's been a wonderful way to get our community together and have some actual community bonding and community building here in City Hall, which doesn't happen very often. And it's introduced City Hall to a lot of people who normally wouldn't be here. So I've been so impressed with your execution of that project, and thank you for leading it. We really appreciate you. I also want to thank our PD team. So Chief, please pass this along. I believe it was last week, I don't know if it was Friday or Saturday, that a mom with her child went to Crossroads Church and was experiencing a psychotic episode, and our officers responded and engaged with her with compassion and de-escalated the situation, and were able to get her assistance and communicate with the family. And that was really wonderful. And I actually heard about it from a community member who told other community members. I didn't hear it directly from the PD. And so that's the kind of stuff that really helps. It's a ripple effect, right? And in the moments like this, when I know that sometimes our PD doesn't feel all the love, right? But I think that here in Corona, and these are the things that make us really love our PD force, right? You guys treat us with dignity and compassion, and this was just a really great example of that. So thank you, and pass that along to our team. And then, Mr. Ellis, thanks for the McKinley update. I just want to remind folks that you can receive text updates to your phone if you text McKinley to 844-518-1409. Again, that's 844-518-1409, and you can just get these updates straight to your phone. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to thank Denzel as well. Remember the Titans was a great movie, and how that team came together was... I'm just kidding. Good luck in South Park. I think Colorado is lucky to have you, and you will do well, and you've done well here. Sorry, Jim, but I have a presentation tonight that I need to go through, and I've asked Sylvia to help me with this. And I'm not going to go all gas company on this one. So, it was brought to my attention earlier this week at 1208 Bell Avenue that a housing project on an empty lot was going to be built in Corona. And This housing project has problems for two reasons, and the first reason is SB 9. So this empty lot right here, they're proposing to build 3 structures, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with 1 garage, another entire house with no garage, so all street parking, and then another entire house, small house with 1 bedroom, no garage, so again, street parking. And this is the state forcing their one-size-fits-all approach to housing. So if you go to the next slide, you can see why this isn't going to help. Here's where this empty lot is on, I just lost my screen, on Bell Avenue. Across the street from it is a school, right? And it was a school that was built in halves. The first half, the 1920s, the second half with 1930s. This school has no parking for its teachers. The teachers park on Bell Avenue and Olive Street and wherever they can find. So when we allow this building complex to be developed, to be built, we will now be taking that parking away from the teachers. And we will also be, the surrounding neighbors will struggle even more to find parking. And if we could go to the next slide. So there's the empty lot, and there's a nice, pretty historic house to the left of it. And if you go to the next slide, there's the school. And not only do you see a school that's congested with parking, but if you go to the next slide, there's a sign that says no parking. From 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., those spots are reserved for the school, and they really don't want citizens parking there. And it's drop-off places too, right? Moms, dads drop off their kids. And then take a look at the street. You're going to notice that it's narrow. It's really a narrow street because this street was laid out in the 1800s. Go to the next slide. If you see where the stop sign is, it's Grand Boulevard. This is a housing project that's being proposed next to a Grand Boulevard that is on the National Historic Register of Places. And if you were, it's not in this picture, but if you were to turn right and go, I don't know, 20, 30 yards, there once was a tree where Barney Oldfield, world-famous racer, swerved to hit a kid that ran out into the street and hit a tree. He hit the tree and lost the race because he saved this kid's life, right? But you have a lot of history here, and then now you're going to build this congested housing. And for the reasons I bring this up is SB 9 is dictated from the state, and what the state, and I'm trying to be nice about this, what the state is trying to do is they're trying to say we have a housing crisis, we need to find houses for people to live, and come hell or high water, you need to build houses and put these people in it. But they're not realizing the problems that come with this jam-packed housing approach. You have historic houses in the neighborhood, you have a street that's historic in the neighborhood, you have a small street, and you have a school that already has no parking. The state takes none of this into consideration. And if you research SB 9, you will learn, and it's in their notes, they specifically say, don't complain to us about parking, we don't want to hear it. They literally say that. We don't want to hear you complain about parking, get used to it. So for that reason, I've emailed the city manager, Jacob Ellis, this morning and asked that for future council agenda items for SB 9 that more stringent regulations come from our city of Corona so that we can prevent this from happening again. And in my research, I believe there's good loopholes in how we can make that so it doesn't happen again. And it'll be a vote. It'll be however the 5 of us vote, I think. If you go to the next slide, this is the second part of the problem, is this house right here was probably built 1905, early 1900s. I know it says 1920s, but it's probably earlier. It's a farmhouse. You look at the siding, I can tell you right now that's a Croonin house. That's a Leo Croonin house. It was designed by Corona's first architect. This house actually doesn't sit in a historic district. I don't know why that hasn't happened over the years, but it hasn't. And if you look to the house to the left, you'll see a nice little Craftsman bungalow. And if you were to go to the right, you'll see old houses as well. So if you drive up and down Bell both ways, I think Bell ends at Francis or somewhere around there, and then it ends at the hospital the other way. It's jam-packed, full of houses, bungalows, old houses have been stuccoed, but it's old houses, it's a historic feel, and it's a historic neighborhood. If you go back to my first slide, if you look at these pictures here, this developer has proposed to build 1970s appearance housing. So not only is he going to build 3 units on this lot, but he wants to build 1970s appearance housing. Now, thanks to Joanne and the building department, they've reached out to this developer, and he's agreed to come back to the table to the city and start adding historic elements to his housing project. And thank you to GA Design Build for being willing to do that. But I've noticed this has been a problem. I think it's going to continue to be a problem. So my second future agenda request of the day was for, again, to the city manager, that the city of Corona establish a historic commission, because this is happening far, far too often. There's actually a development that happened last year that did this. They did 3 houses within the circle. And if you drive by it, there's nothing historical about it. Not one element. They put in vinyl windows and stucco. So I don't think I need to demonize anybody, but I just think we're to the point where things are slipping through the cracks too easily and too often. So with that, I want to again thank this developer. I'm hoping that we can put some good SB 9 regulations in place. And with that, I will adjourn my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one comment that I wanted to provide. Last week on Thursday, descending upon City Hall was a group of 3rd graders from a local elementary school that were learning about government and local government, and they wanted to do a field trip at City Hall. So first off, I wanted to thank Justin Tucker for putting back on his teacher hat and corralling a bunch of rambunctious 3rd graders who enjoyed their day at City Hall. They had tours of different departments, so I wanted to thank staff for being patient and kind to a bunch of 3rd graders asking all kinds of crazy questions. In the wrap up, and I've had a couple opportunities to talk to some of these kids, they specifically highlighted 2 spots on their tour that stood out to them. The first being the map room in the planning department. And Megan in planning did a great job of keeping a bunch of 3rd graders interested in all of the maps and everything that goes on there. Maps are cool. And overwhelmingly, their favorite stop on their tour was the IT department. Because in the IT department, they got to hang out in a room that was really cold. And they got great dad jokes from the IT department, and it ended with candy, right? So the 2 jokes that I would be remiss if I did not mention them were, can anybody tell me why the sun is so smart? Because it has 10,000 degrees. And then the highlight was, why did the M&Ms go to school? And it was because they wanted to be Smarties, which ended with the kids all being given a little thing of Smarties candy, which then ended up probably all over City Hall. So thank you again to the staff that were gracious and kind and patient with the 3rd graders, and Mr. Tucker for putting it together. Believe it or not, we sat in this room and I got to have a conversation with them and answer some questions, which there were plenty. And they were not the questions that I were expecting. And the first little boy that raised his hand wanted to know, and I kid you not, what are you doing with traffic on McKinley? That was the first question. And I thought to myself, you know what? If our 3rd graders know what's going on in our community, then then that is a good thing. So again, thank you to staff. The kids had a really great time, and it's fun being having the little kids say, "Oh, that's the mayor. That's the mayor." That's probably one of the best parts about this job. So thank you again. It looks like we are going to have the next meeting of City Council on Wednesday, March 1st, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.